Namaste, Adab, Sat Sri Akal, and hello. This is Darshan Kaur, and I'm bringing you a brand new podcast series called Election 2020 Desi Voices. Friends, unless you've taken your quarantine a bit too seriously and are hiding in a cave somewhere, you would already know that there is an election coming up in the US on November 3rd. You would have seen posts on social media, would have looked at headlines in the media on the primaries, DNC and RNC, and perhaps even had a discussion on this topic. And if you're unfortunate, an argument on this topic with your friends and family. We're bringing you this series to explore how the ongoing election process impacts the Desi community in terms of their expectations and how our community leaders are motivating and inspiring us to participate in the process a bit more proactively. With me in the studio today is Ritesh Desai, who is a prominent member of the Republican Party of Georgia. He's been named among the top 25 most influential Asian Americans in Georgia for several years on end. He's a member of the President Trump's campaign board, Indian Voices for Trump. He's co-chair of the Economic Development Subcommittee within the Asian American Commission, vice chair of Georgia's Equal Opportunity Commission. He was a member of the transition team of the then governor-elect and now Governor Kemp of Georgia, and the member of the Georgians First Commission, which is an 18-member commission comprising of business owners who were handpicked by the governor to make Georgia the number one state for small businesses in the country. Ritesh served as a chair of the Tax Reform Committee as a part of the Georgians First Commission. He has also been serving BAPS, the largest Hindu association in the United States, in various capacities. In addition, he has successfully founded several companies, including some iconic brands such as vanityvala.com. Welcome to our podcast, Ritesh.
Darshan, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to have you. And I want to start off by saying that I'm very proud of my Indian heritage. I'm very proud of my Hindu roots, and I'm a practicing Hindu. I'm a proud American. I'm a proud Republican. I think it is fair to say that the views that we will share today will be those pretty much just of myself. I do not speak for an organization, even though I may hold certain positions within those groups, whether it's social, community, political, religious, whatever it may be. But it is such a pleasure and honor to have to be a part of this, and I'm excited to share at least a different perspective than what people may be used to as it relates to this election.
Perfect. So, what you just said actually prompted my first question. So, you mentioned that you are a proud Hindu, you're an Indian American, and you're also a Republican. So, what does it feel to be an Indian American and a Republican, especially in this time of polarization that we're going through?
You know, it's a very interesting question, quite frankly, because I don't feel any different. I've been part of the Republican Party since 2003. And I take a lot of pride in representing our community as a part of the Republican Party. To be honest with you, the Republican Party has been fantastic. They have been extremely giving and extremely supportive of a lot of the work that I have done. I do not feel any different. I don't feel like being a part of this Republican Party that they look at me any different simply because I'm a Hindu or simply because I'm an Indian. I think they look at me just the same as they look at anybody else.
Right. So that's how you're perceived by the Republican Party or the Republicans. I'm also curious to know how you're perceived by the other side.
You know, I don't look at things just very clear Democrat and Republican, although people may believe that from some things that, some discussions we may have. My core principles align more with the Republican Party, as I believe most Indians do, right? But I don't think that the Democrats feel any different. I mean, I have friends on both sides. I have friends that are core Democrats, and I have friends that are core Republicans, and I've had them for years. Those that are elected officials, so those that are just normal people like you and me. But it has never impacted our relationship. And I think, the idea now that we cannot have those discussions, and I am just glad that we're having this discussion because that civility is gone, right? And I think it's time to bring civility back. It's okay if two people don't agree. I think what we need to do is to be able to agree, to disagree. right? I don't have to convince you that what I believe is the only right thing. Just like I don't want somebody else to try to convince me that what I believe or what they believe is the only right thing, right? I think it's open to have discussion, and that is the intent, I hope, for this conversation, because I want to share that perspective with you. And at least, hey, for those that have made up their minds, good for you. If you haven't made up your minds or are willing to listen to a different perspective, then that's what I want to bring to you here today.
No, and let me assure you that at Atlanta Dunia and me personally, whatever personal opinions we may or may not have, we plan to be to be completely unbiased when it comes to this series. So I can definitely assure you of that.
I'm
Uh,
very
so
grateful for that. Thank you.
no, you're welcome. So let me move on to my next question. So the big news has been over the last few weeks has been the nomination of Kamala Harris as VP for Democrats, right? So do you think that nomination or that particular event has impacted the campaign for Indian Voices for Trump? Do you think that it's going to dent the Indian American support for President Trump?
Actually, if anything, it's going to help President Trump. That's what I believe. Um, you wouldn't believe the amount of people that have reached out to me that were core Democrats for ages and ages on out. People that have raised money for the Democratic Party, people that have raised money for and given money themselves to Democrats and Democratic candidates, literally came out and said, "We're not voting Democrat this year. This year we're voting for Trump." And why is that? It's pretty interesting to watch because one, they want to talk about economic progress, right? It matters to have stability and to have economic growth. President Trump was doing a phenomenal job. The economy was rocking. Then we had this little thing called a pandemic. Okay, so we had a little glitch. But if you look at the stock market even today, it was doing phenomenal, right? And so the idea is that as a businessman, the Indian American community, at least those that are in business, seem to agree or understand things a little bit better when it relates to President Trump. Second thing is the chaos that has gone on in cities like Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis, and these are all democratically run cities, right? And what we've seen is that there's a sense of uncertainty. People don't feel safe, right? And so a lot of people are saying, hey, safety matters to me and my family. And I know that President Trump will restore that safety, right? And so that has been the other reason why a lot of people are saying, what are my choices? The choices are very clear. Are we going for chaos or are we going for economic progress? Are we going for keeping America to be the land of opportunity, or are we talking about turning into a socialist government and hoping to God that everything comes from the government? In fact, for that matter, there's been this discussion of taking the word God out of the equation, even when it comes to the Pledge of Allegiance. These are things that even the Indian community looks at and says, this is not us. Recently there was a post that I saw, and I think I reposted it. It was about the largest gathering of Indian Americans for the national, well, not Indian Americans, Indians for the national anthem. That's our culture. That's where we come from. We stand for our flag. We stand for our anthem. We respect the flag. If you don't respect, the national, if you want to respect the nation and you don't respect your national anthem, guess what? You can't respect the nation. And that's not just for the Indian anthem. Obviously, if you live in India, then yes. And even if you live outside, being that it's our motherland, yes, we stand for our national anthem, our flag. But that is a core part of who we are. And so when we come to the United States, or for that matter, any other part of the world, we stand for that country's national anthem out of respect. We stand for the flag. And these are the core differences. And what we've seen is a huge uptick in the people of Indian origin that have decided that we stand for progress. We want capitalism. That is why we came to this country. 32 years ago, my parents came here. It's the same story that every immigrant will tell you, including every Indian American person. $30 in his pocket. And he created an opportunity for my brother and I. And, that's only possible here in the United States. And we don't want to let that just go to waste. And so our community is saying that we want to now align more with the president and with the Republican Party.
Okay, so you do believe that this is actually going to help you garner more votes from our community. Just the selection of Kamala is actually going to help you in that sense.
Well, absolutely, and keep in mind that both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have a track record of speaking against India. And so Indian Americans that are very pro-India, that are still connected to the motherland, feel very offended that the Democratic Party, I think they feel like they didn't leave the party left them, right? And so, when they are pro-China and pro-Pakistan, then, it was a clear message for them to say, I think we need to go with President Trump, who is truly a great friend of India, and Prime Minister Modi.
So, which just brings me to my next question. So, Ab ki Baar Trump Sarkar, right? These were words spoken by Prime Minister Modi at the Howdy Modi event back in Houston last year. So, do you think that you just mentioned that even those of us like from India, we have very strong ties to the motherland, like whether we've been here 30 years or 40 years or 60 years or whatever it is. Indians do tend to have very strong ties to the motherland, and PM Modi, actually happens to be a very popular figure, especially amongst NRIs, right? So, given that he said these words, or that he's openly shown his support in the past at the Howdy Modi event for President Trump, do you think that is having an impact on how Indian Americans are going to vote in this election?
I think people like and understand that India, for one, is the largest democracy in the world, and US is the oldest democracy. The two leaders are natural allies because of their backgrounds. They're both nationalists, okay? They care about putting their people first, as every leader should. The other thing that you have to understand is that as people who understand business on both sides, both leaders understand that. There's a natural connection there, right? There's rule of law there. So there's rule of law in the United States. And these are some of the basic things that connect us as leaders, right? As the two countries. Now, you add to that the Indian American community's involvement, their contribution. More than 60% of the hotels in this country are owned and or operated by Indian Americans in the United States. Okay, and that includes all flags, in fact, and even non-flags, right? What's also interesting is the amount of doctors that we have, the lawyers that we have, so on and so forth. Right? So our contribution, our family values, all of these things resonate very well with the Republican Party. My parents, they stay with me, Darshan, and that's normal. For us, it's a blessing to have them. It's not a burden by any stretch of the imagination. And what I find interesting is that all of those things resonate very well as far as the Republican principles are concerned with the Indian American community. Now, as far as the comments coming from Prime Minister Modi, I think he's sharing his personal feelings on his relationship with a world leader that is Donald Trump. Okay, I think if people want to listen to that, that's great. But quite frankly, there's a lot of things that people don't listen to that Prime Minister Modi says. But what's important is that the two have clearly and openly shown the love for each other as friends, but also the love for the two cultures and the two countries on so many levels, whether it's cultural, people to people, business, so on and so forth.
So hopefully that translates into some votes for you for your side. So I'm going to move on to a question. We talked about how you mentioned how there are different values in Indians that kind of resonate with the Republican Party, right? You just talked about that in your response. Now let's talk about something that has been sort of like a sort of conflict point, because it is
Sure.
perceived by the Indian diaspora that President Trump, as well as Republicans' policies, tend to be anti-immigrant, right? Add to that the heavy backlog of green cards. These are issues that greatly impact the Indian American community. I know they are not voters right now. People who are here on H1s or have applied for green cards have to wait. I don't know how long the wait is, probably 100 years, or, something like that. So these are the future voters of our community, and they have children who were, who were born here. Those are future voters as well. So how does your campaign propose to address these concerns of the community?
So the first thing you said was the immigration issue, right? And what was the second thing that you said?
So how do you, the green card backlog and everything,
Right.
right? And so these are the two things like, yeah,
Anti-immigrants.
yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about immigration, right? So the number one thing about immigration is this. I think that the system has been broken for quite some time. Okay. And I think this president is doing everything he can to try to bring some level of reform to that. And he has some of the brightest minds. And I'll tell you, I think Senator Perdue of Georgia is one of those bright minds. Now, with that said, let's talk about anti-immigrant first. I don't believe that this president is anti-immigrant by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. I think he is anti-illegal immigrant. He wants to have some level of law and order. He wants to have a border. He wants to have a wall. That's not to keep people away, but it is to keep illegal immigrants away, right? Because he believes that we should, every nation should have a border, because that's what defines a nation. Okay, you can't just have free for all. Okay, then what is the point? I'll tell you this: my parents waited nearly 14 years before they had a chance to appear at a consulate. Again, my family's not unique to that. Many of our immigrants that came here legally feel that way, right? Now, they could have been denied their visas for whatever reason, and then those 14 years would have been gone. Okay, so if somebody goes through the process of waiting for 14 years to simply have an opportunity to appear in the consulate and present their case, okay, how is it fair to them if illegal immigrants are given the same rights? It's like breaking a law which already exists, right? And allowing them the opportunity, the same opportunity, and almost rewarding them for breaking the law. That's where the disconnect is, and that's where the problem is. As far as the green cards are concerned, look, this president specifically is interested in bringing skilled workers. There was a discussion about countrywide quotas, okay, and he absolutely agrees. And I spoke with Senator Perdue personally, and Senator Perdue had a couple of reservations about some things that were in the bill that he wasn't completely comfortable with, and once he got comfortable with it, he released it. Now, I don't want to make this into a partisan issue, but I'm telling you that the product is now stuck with the Democrats. It's not stuck with the Republicans, right? But in order to make a change like the immigration, like a change in immigration, people of both sides have to come together to make this happen, right? And unfortunately, one of the things that we've seen is the leadership on the other side has continuously blocked progress. Their intention has been more to block the progress of President Trump than to actually do good for the people that they represent, than to do good for the American people. And I think that's where the problem is.
I think that happens regardless of whoever is the president and whoever is in
I think
power.
it's been more so. I think it's been more so the case in this particular president's situation.
Okay, I'm gonna just let you get away with that. So moving on to my next question, and I think this is likely the last question because I know you're very busy. So this is to do with the community's involvement, right? So even though Indian American community has deep pockets, and we're supposed we're financially we are well off, we are a well-off community, and it's useful when it comes to fundraising. But why do you think that our community is not being that politically active? We don't see a lot of leaders, we don't see a lot of people standing for elections from our community. And then related to that, another question is, at least this is shown up in my research, that our community has not been pursued by both parties in the past. Like, because even when we have had leaders from our community, such as Nikki Haley or Bobby Jindal on one side, and even Kamala on the other side, they have had to identify as either Caucasian or African American in order to get the votes, in order to rise up politically, right? So why is it that our community has not even been pursued by both parties in the past?
So I disagree. Actually, for the last 25 plus years, I've been pursued by both parties. At some point, they gave up. The Democratic side gave up on me because they realized that I was more Republican than Democrat. But because I had friends on both sides, they have pursued me personally to run for some elected office. But this is not about me, right? I'm just one small example. This is about our community. Now, look, there are various aspects to this. If we talk about Nikki Haley, I have met her several times. I've interacted with her. She's come to AHOA, the Asian American Hotel Owners Association, the largest hotel owners association in the world. And I can tell you that she very much so identifies herself with the Indian American community. It is not abnormal for her to walk into a room full of Indian Americans and completely be one with them, identify with them, and it's not abnormal for ladies to simply come up and give her a big hug. And I've seen this with my own two eyes, so I'm telling you this. As far as Kamala Harris is concerned, and we talk about Indian American, I'm not against anybody, that wants to become president. Okay, I don't base my decision on color. I base it on substance, right? If Nikki Haley were to run tomorrow, even as a Democrat, I'd be excited for her, even though that she would run as a Republican. The reason I'm not excited about Kamala Harris, even though she has an Indian mother, which technically makes her Indian, is because it's like this. If I tell my kids that I need you to vacuum the floor so you get some candy, if you want candy, you have to vacuum the floor. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to vacuum the floor. Why? Because they want the candy. It's no different than saying, I'm happy to wear a sari, make some dosa online, okay, eat some samosas, okay, and claim to be Indian. Why? Because I want your money. That's what we have seen out of Kamala Harris, because you know what? She has, and look, she's running for the US elections. I completely get it. She doesn't have to identify as an Indian American, right? But all I'm saying is don't try to say both sides, okay? Let's take advantage of what we need to do. As far as the community is concerned, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. As far as their political views, it doesn't matter what their political views are. And I can tell you, Darshan, that I'll encourage anybody that wants to get involved in the political process. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, get involved. You'll figure it out on your own where you want to be, okay? But it's important for a community to get involved, okay? And what's important is that in the community, when it comes to the community, people, the community needs people on both sides, okay? So if we're talking about the community at large, the involvement on both sides is very critical. If you look at Ro Khanna, if you look at Jaipal, if you look at Congressman Krishnamurthy, if you look at Ami Bera, okay, these guys have been in politics, in mainstream. They're all, members of Congress. And overall, they're Indian Americans that have been indoctrinated into the whole process, which is great. But keep in mind that, Pramila Jaipal and Ro Khanna, even though, I know Ro well, they have not been fans of the Indian community. They have actually been, they've even joined the Pakistan caucus. I know that Ro has, right? So these are things that we have to keep in mind. As far as the election process is concerned, there are a few things we need to understand, right? So the first thing we need to understand is that Indian Americans are very much tied, I'm talking about the first generation, very much tied, and some second generation, but very much tied to what's happening in India. They know what happened in Rajasthan elections and what happened in UP elections and what happened in Telangana elections and so on and so forth, which is good. I think it's wonderful that they're engaged. The issue that exists is that most of them, in fact, I would say 99% plus, do not want to go back and live in India. Even if they do, their kids, their grandkids are not going to go back and live in India. You have a vested interest here in the United States. So guess what, buddy? You better get involved in what's happening here, right? Now, the one thing that people have always talked about is, oh, I don't want to get jury duty. Bhai sahab, ye jury duty hai. Phansi ki saza nahi hai. Okay, they're not going to hang you. It's just, it's your civic duty. And it comes irrespective of whether you sign up for, voter registration or not. Now, let's say that you get voter registration, jury duty because you signed up for voter registration, okay? Because people are just sold on this. Guys, we talk about ROI all the time, return on investment. For something so small, are we giving away our ability to vote, exercise our right to vote, and so that our people, our kids, our future generation, we are not able to shape the future for them? That's not very smart. Indian Americans, generally speaking, are extremely intelligent people, and they're very focused on the ROI, no matter whether you're in business or not, right? We're always looking for the value for the dollar, and I think in this case we're not exercising that. So I highly hope that people will take advantage of that. There are some wonderful websites out there. There's one of the Indian community that I want to mention. It's called BAPS publicaffairs.org/vote 2020. BAPS publicaffairs.org/vote 2020. It has all 50 states. So irrespective of where you live in the United States, you can go there and it will tell you whether you're registered to vote, right? Using natural, the things that are official sources that are in the state government. And then if you're not, then register yourself to vote. You can also get the absentee ballots. Okay, you can request an absentee ballot. You will get one. Fill that out. If you don't want to go to the polls on election day, that's fine. But get involved.
And actually, on jury duty and voter registration, I'll tell you, I actually registered to vote after I became a citizen. I registered to vote immediately. I actually got my passport 2 years later because I wasn't planning on traveling anywhere. But I did register to vote. And I think the first time or the only time I've been called for jury duty was actually 5 years after I registered to vote. It's not something that I registered and then immediately I was called for jury duty. I wasn't selected, but I would have been happy to do my civil duty anyway.
Fantastic. A great attitude. Thank you.
So with that, Ritesh, I really want to thank you so much for coming here on this show. I know you're a busy person. And it's hard to get your time. So thank you so much for sharing your time and your perspective with us. So I really appreciate you doing that for us. Thank you so much.
I'm never too busy for you. Anytime you need anything, you know where to find me. I do want to tell you that if our community wants to get involved in the Indian Voices for Trump, there are many ways to do it. There are some online things that they can do, but there's an app called Telegram. If they download that and then go to Indian Voices for Trump, they can be a part of that. It's going to be a fantastic movement. And I welcome everybody to be a part of that. So thank you. Thank you again for having me here.
Thank you for that information. So friends, before I go, there's just a couple of takeaways from today's podcast. If you have friends or family members who are on the other side than the one you favor, please respect their opinion as well. They have just as much of a right to their opinion as you have. Like Ritesh mentioned, have a civil discourse, agree to disagree, but please do not lose any friends or relations over this. Because remember, the next time you need help or need to move houses, it's your friend who is likely to come and help you, not the president, not the VP, or not even your local congressman or congresswoman. So love everybody and keep on smiling. Also, like Ritesh mentioned, in order to improve our community's participation, or even if you're not from our community, you do need to go vote. You need to register to vote. Please use the website that Ritesh mentioned, or look for other websites, Google them, find out how you can register, and please go vote. We do need you to participate in this process called democracy. This is Darshan signing off for now. See you another time with another guest with a different perspective. Thank you.